We're going to be looking this morning in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1. And if you can't find it, it comes right before Ecclesiastes chapter 2. But anyway, I'm going to preface this with a very spiritual illustration. We were watching on YouTube the other night a documentary about the world's largest hot dog restaurant. Thank God Donna is as much of a hot dog nut as I am. The counter in the hot dog restaurant is exactly the length of a football field. That's a big restaurant. And the people that work behind the counter have to train for several years before they get to work the counter itself. And when you walk in there, there's a large menu on the wall. And the person behind the counter, which they've trained for years, simply asks you, what do you have? What do you have? What do you have? And you better know what you want real quick because the lines are very long and you're going to get everybody angry if you don't know what you want when you get there. I forget how many thousands and thousands of hot dogs they sell every day in that restaurant. What do you have? What do you have? What do you have? Well, that's kind of what we're going to look at today in the book of Ecclesiastes, because there are people that still don't know what they want. And they are looking in every place possible to find what they want. And quite often when they get it, that still doesn't do the job. Still doesn't do the job. And here we're going to look at the writings of what was considered the wisest and richest man that ever lived on the earth in the way of a human being, and what he found. As a matter of fact, the book of Ecclesiastes was written out of depression. It was written out of frustration, to where King Solomon, who had everything, was looking for what would do the job for him, and this is what he said. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, vanity of vanities, that literally meant emptiness. And when you are depressed, everything seems empty. And most everybody in here has had a run with depression before. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanity, all is vanity. Everything was emptiness to this man who had more, he put more money on his nightstand, if there was such a thing, at night than Bill Gates had. That's the truth. Then he said, all is vanity, or all is emptiness. Then he said, what profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? One generation passes away, another generation comes, but the earth is still there. The sun arises and the sun goes down and hurries to the place where he arose. Then he says the wind goes toward the south and turns about to the north, and it whirls about continually. And the wind returneth again according to his circuits. It's kind of like that woman that used to sing, why does the sun keep on shining? Don't they know it's the end of the world? You know, all of that. It's a sad love song. And she is surprised that in the tragedy that she was facing, that everything is still going on like it always has. And that's what was frustrating Solomon. And he did have a few scientific facts to quote. All rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. He understood evaporation. Pretty smart. All things are full of, he says, literally weariness or labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. The thing that has been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Now we look at the stuff going on in the world today and we go, boy, I'd never heard of anything like that before. Yeah, but somebody else did. Things that we are dealing with today have been going on for thousands of years. We look at each generation beneath us, and now there are 2 generations, or maybe 3 beneath me. And all the times we would look at our kids and go, what is wrong with you? They're saying that to theirs. And we still can't figure them out. He said, is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It hath been already of old time, which was before us. Solomon said, there's nothing new. There's no remembrance of former things, neither shall be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. And then he says this, I, the preacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. And here's what he did. He wanted to find out just what it was that would satisfy the void that he felt inside of him. And everybody that is searching now have a void that somehow cannot be filled, and they try to fill it with everything. This man had enough money to try anything he wanted to try. And he said, and I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This difficult thing, or this sore travail, as they called it, hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all of it is emptiness and trouble or vexation of spirit. That which is crooked cannot be made straight. That which is wanting cannot be numbered. And he's saying this out of frustration, y'all. He tried everything and he is so frustrated. And he writes 12 chapters of it. He said, I commune with my own heart, saying, lo, I am come to great estate. That meant he had a lot of money, okay? And he said, and I have gotten more wisdom than all that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yet my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also is vexation of spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief. Have you noticed, this is awful, I ought not say this, people running around that's happy all the time? Well, they're stupid. Okay, you know, and I envy them at times, because with a lot of wisdom of what's going on in the world, man, it's grievous. And I probably shouldn't have said that, because I know not everybody is stupid. Well, they are stupid. Okay, all right. And he said, for in much wisdom is much grief, for he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. The more you know, the worse it makes you feel. And here Solomon just about knew it all back then. So now he is going in his depression, and he's going to try everything to see what will get rid of it. He said, I said in my heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. That's an old English word for comedy. And therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. I said of laughter, it is madness, and of mirth, what doeth it? So he tried comedy. And, you know, doctors have even found that when they would put up some comedians on TV, the ones nowadays aren't funny. They're worthless, but the ones back years ago were very funny. And they used to put some comedy shows and movies on to terminal patients. Some of them turned around and pulled out of it because the comedy would release, when they would get to laughing, it would release certain things in the body that would help heal them and change their attitude. But that still does not fill the void that people are searching for. Because if that was true, why are so many comedians committing suicide? Many of them. Some of the funniest comedians that ever lived all died of drug overdoses or suicide. And it's really, really sad. Even they knew that that wasn't going to fill that void as good as they were. Then the next thing he tried. I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine. And there are people that try intoxicants to fill that void. Drugs and alcohol and everything they can, and they go partying and they do. But you know, when you wake up, you still got that awful empty void. And the thrill you had last night isn't going to cut it. You got to have a bigger thrill tonight. And on and on and on. And that's where addictions and that's where alcoholism and all of that comes from. It's not that anybody intended to become addicted. It just happened to them while they were doing that search. And don't look down on them so very much, because you may have had another choice of poison for your search and you found that it did not work. They need to be prayed for. I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. And the wine didn't cut it. And I expect he could, with the kind of money that he had, he could have probably mixed a 1933 Mouton Rothschild with a Hostess Twinkie. And it didn't do him any good. That's a definition, a wine connoisseur's definition of perversion, by the way, okay? And he probably tried all of the finest intoxicants that let me give it to you this way. One day, a former assistant pastor and I led this man to the Lord that had been running for years. Finally caught him in the hospital. When we got in the door, we said, "You know why we're here, don't you?" "Yeah, I know why you're here." "You've been running, haven't you? Now you're caught. Now what's it going to be?" And he prayed for salvation. And after that, he said, "Let me tell y'all something." He said, "I've been high off of the most expensive dope and liquor that money can buy, and I've never felt anything better than this." Amen. And that was being saved. And so here Solomon had tried it, and it was just emptiness. He calls it vexation. Then he said, "I made me great works. I builded me houses." Now, Solomon could build one heck of a house. Most of us will never build a big house. We'll never have the money to build a big house. I feel about like the governor of West Virginia. Excuse me, brother, for telling a West Virginia joke, but I can't help it. This is a good one. Did you hear about the governor's mansion caught on fire in West Virginia, burned all the way down to the axles? I've lived in single wides and double wides most of my life. And now I'm living at a school. How about that? I will never be wealthy. I will never have a big house. Lord knows at this point in my life I don't want one. It's just more work to do. But I am content. But can you imagine what Solomon built with the money and the people that worked for him that he had? "I made me great works. I built me houses. I planted vineyards." He probably owned half the world and could plant the biggest vineyard you'd ever seen. "I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them and all kinds of fruit." Some people find some form of solace in gardening. I never was a good gardener. The last time I planted 6 tomato plants and I got 1 tomato out of all 6 plants. I did everything right. I bought that expensive potting soil. I brought them things you stick in the ground. I watered them. I got 1 blasted tomato. Candy goes out in the courtyard at the school, and what was it? You throwed a pumpkin out, and it just rotted on the ground, and all of a sudden the next year, runners went all over the place, and I bet we got 50 pumpkins off of that. I could not have done that. My father told me I was a very sorry gardener because I have no patience. But here he planted gardens and orchards and trees and all kinds of fruits. And that did not do it for him, all that beauty. He said, I made me pools of water, to water wherewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. Can you imagine Solomon's swimming pool? Just think of what he did with the money and the riches. They said he had so much silver that you could literally pave roads with it, and it was never even counted in the Bible because he had so much of it that was given to him in tribute, and the gold was unbelievable that he had, the amount of gold. We calculated it one time, and it was billions and billions of dollars worth of gold and silver that Solomon had. He was the richest man that has ever lived. There has never been anyone in history that has been as rich as Solomon. But it didn't cut it. And he said, I made me pools of water, to water wherewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. He had people to wait on him for everything. He probably even had people he hired to go worry for him. I would love to have that. Man, I'd pay you well if I had it. And he said, I had servants born in my house. I had great possessions of great and small cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before me. He had all of this livestock and all of these animals. That still didn't cut it. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of kings and of the provinces. People brought him literally wagon trains full of gifts every year from all over the known world. Every exotic animal, every jewel, every spice, everything that was any value at all, they brought it to him. And you would think, well, maybe that would fill the void, but it didn't. And he threw up his hands. And here's one right here. I got me men singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. Somebody get real spiritual and tell me about what's the name of your favorite band?
Reliant.
Huh? Reliant K? Dolly Parton? Okay. Getting closer to what I like. Okay. Anybody else? Skillet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that was coming from back there. The Dire Straits. Yeah, they're good. They're good. The Eagles?
Oh, yeah.
Who? Chicago? Journey? Come on, where's the Toto at? What's wrong with y'all? What about the Little River Band? What is? Okay, all right. All right. What if for one evening you could have your favorite singer or band or combination thereof come to your house and do a full concert at your house? That's what Solomon did. He got the best musicians on the planet during that time and singers, and he brought them to his house, and they would sing and perform for him, and it still did not cut it. And then he says, so I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem, and also my wisdom remained with me. And whatsoever I desired, I kept not from them. Whatsoever my eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor. And this was my portion of all my labor. What he didn't say in here was that he had 700 wives. There you go. I'll leave that one alone. Now, there are people who think relationships will do it. Oh, if a lot of ladies, if I could only have a man. There's 5 or 6 ladies in here that'd be glad to give you one. Oh, if I could just have that woman, oh my goodness, my life would be totally fulfilled. Let me tell you this, if you're depending on a relationship to fulfill your life, you're going to be disappointed. Now, there is nothing wrong with having a wonderful, godly relationship, and I kid you not, that's mighty hard to beat, but that won't do it for the void that is in your heart. Not at all. And Solomon ought to know he had 700 wives. And, well, anyway. Okay. I'm going to sleep peacefully tonight and not be in fear, so I'm going to move on pretty quickly here. All right. Now, then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was emptiness and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. And I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do that cometh after the king, even that which has already been done? In other words, try it. You'll never be able to do any more than I did. I've been there. I've done that. Let me save you the trouble. Don't do it. And then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as the light excelleth darkness. This wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And I myself perceived also that one event happened to them all. Then said I in my heart, as it happened to the fools, so it happened even to me. And why was I then more wise? And, oh, here we go. We got stuck together. And then I said in my heart, this also is vanity. And so what he did was, for the next bunch of chapters, he wrote about his feelings, his philosophy, what he found in his search for the thing that would fill that emptiness, that would fix that void that he has. We see that today. You go out on the street, you look at it on TV, and you watch people, and they are frantically trying to find something that will fill that void. It's grievous sometimes to see how hard they try, knowing that it's not going to work. Sadly, most people have to find out for themselves, because they will not listen to what you got to say. And a lot of times you just got to pray that they'll stay alive long enough to figure it out, and that God will sustain them. And then there's some that will read this, and that will hear this, and that will go, you know, maybe I need to leave these things alone and follow the one thing that will fix that void. But we see people are increasing today in the intensity of looking for that void. People have more time on their hands now than they ever have in any generation before. And they take that time to be very creative in some of the crazy stuff they do to look for whatever is going to fill that void. Finally, Solomon said in chapter 12 and verse 13, he wrapped it up. He said, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. All 12 chapters, he summed it up. He said, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment, and with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Let me conclude as well by saying this. God sees all of our efforts to find Him. And He reveals Himself in His Word and tells us who He is and tells us what we need to do to find that thing that will fill that void, and that is accepting Jesus Christ into your life as your Savior and your Lord, and following Him and following the precepts that He left for us in His Word. Trust me, that is the only way you will ever find something that will fill that void. Save yourselves a lot of trouble and a lot of grief and a lot of heartache and a lot of health problems, I might even add, by following the Lord and following His precepts, because He says here, the day is coming that God is going to bring every work that we've done into judgment. I saw on the front of what kind of a truck was that we saw that said only God can judge me? We were at some intersection and it was a big truck. And I thought to myself, you don't want God to judge you. You really don't. If God is your judge, it's over. If He is your Savior, it just begins. You want Him as your Savior. You do not want Him as your judge. You need to judge yourself while you're here and get it straight. And because God is going to judge every single work that we do if we have not accepted Him and let Him fill that void. And with every secret thing, there is nothing that we do, no matter how secretive we are, that He doesn't know about. He knows your thoughts. He knows everything we do. And this is the thing that blows my mind. He still loves us. He still wants for us to accept Him. He's not waiting for the day that He can cut us down and toss us into hell. A lot of people think that that's not what He's looking for. He's looking to save you. And if you don't make it, it's not His fault. And so my exhortation for you today is give it up. Stop doing all this chasing after things that's going to make you feel better, because in the next day you're going to have something stronger than that to cut it. Accept Christ and follow His precepts and walk with Him, and you will not have a void in your heart any longer. Oh, you'll have trials and troubles and all kinds of things come your way, but the one thing you'll have is peace, knowing that you belong to Him and He belongs to you. Shall we